under the Kenya Sugar Research Institute. So we are going back there and say, look, India is doing now cane at 9 months. Why are we doing 24? Why are we doing 19? And the most important, the thing that had created different versions, the areas of disagreement were basically in the area of whether imported sugar, and you know that's the cause of our problems, should attract a higher levy so that we make it completely impossible to bring in sugar through Somalia, through Sudan and all that.
I want to take a break. I'll come back to that later because it seemed to be one of those interesting bills as an urgent one to be debated today and tomorrow. That is tomorrow. All right, so let's take a break. That was just but a voice test warming up for the discussion coming up shortly. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. So all of us have their coffees on the table and ready. Go. So, Mheshimiwa Nabi, I think...
You mean you have coffee?
Yes, that's coffee, and it has sugar. Now
you are sure you are taking coffee? Let me just taste something.
This is not adulterated. Original from Western. I don't know where exactly, but yes.
I hope you said a prayer.
Okay. So that is what I have here on the front page of the local dailies. Gentlemen, so inside plan to swiftly replace DP Gachagua. Javas, what do you make of that headline?
Just as the headline itself reads, that there is the hatchet work that is self-evident to make sure that there is a new political order within the politics of UDA, particularly within Kenya Kwanza.
Yeah.
And this is not coming as a surprise to anyone who is a keen political observer and follower of issues, that this is something that has been happening for quite many months past. In fact, from sometime last year. I know that a house divided generally will never always stand, especially from within. There has been the push and pull, the toing and froing within Kenya Kwanza, especially within UDA, with antagonistic kind of politics. Politics of, marksmanship, politics of one trying to overdo the other. Some have even said that the Constitution is the problem by the manner in which it has tenured the office of the DP, which I'm diametrically opposed to as a view. But I think the manifestation of the politics of the day-to-day puts us at the crossroads. Crossroads, yes, of politics and history in this country, puts us at the crossroads of the interlink or that nexus between constitutional law and the protection mechanisms and the politics of the day. And thirdly, how political intricacies of, like right now, the binary between Kenya Kwanza and ODM, where Mheshimiwa Nabwera belongs, is what has easily enabled the swift and sure execution of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua's guillotine. But if we're to ask ourselves very critical questions,
about that?
Of course. You know, as a matter of fact, that to the exclusion of ODM, then the numbers would not have been quite certain in the House for purposes of impeachment. Because if ODM would have marshaled its numbers the other side, then it would be a question of conjecture. Secondly, let's ask ourselves, when we look at it through comparative lenses, say in the US as it is, where a president and deputy are elected on a single ticket during elections, we have never seen this kind of facade playing out in the US and even other democracies. Question is it the Constitution that is the problem? I would say no. I think the problem is our political sociology. How we have fashioned and understood our politics, and the politics of self-aggrandizement is what is leading us to this avenue, this boulevard of so much political noise.
Okay, Very good. And now we have got possible, Mheshimiwa Nobera, perhaps you want also to chime on that. I don't know whether it's also one of the quote-unquote urgent matters to be discussed tomorrow. I'm also told that you people are proceeding for a recess.
Yes, I'm not sure.
How fast?
Because among the things listed,
Yeah.
is not one of them.
Okay.
But it could be covered, answered. I saw something there. Other urgent issues, probably. That's what it means. Yeah. But by and large, my problem with that is this. We have a constitution which we are not willing to live, unfortunately. It reminds me, if that's the case, it reminds me of 2008 when Kibaki was sworn in, almost.
At 7 in the evening.
Yes. If you were to interpret government working hours, Kibaki should never have been a president of the Republic of Kenya at all.
Yeah.
In 2008, because government has official working hours. So this rush is politically clean, but constitutionally unacceptable, if that's what we are going to do.
You can take that again.
Yes, I'm saying the rush, if there is, because I don't know, I haven't seen it, if there is politically clean, but is constitutionally unacceptable. I've told people that anytime you do anything and you want to hide on timelines, there is a problem. Because if you are doing the right thing, don't fear whatever time you want to do it.
Take your time.
Yes, take your time. Give people an opportunity to digest. Once the people have digested, then they say, oh, so this is what we're going to do. Right? The reason why this constitution, we have the 2010 constitution, empowering and ensuring there is separation of powers and empowering the judiciary to be an arbiter, is when such situations happen.
Yeah.
So if you want to defeat it, then it's not rational. It's against the will of the people. Because the will of the people is that if I do something which injures Javan here, Javan must be given an opportunity to readdress it. If I deny him that opportunity of redress because of time lapse, then there's a problem. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, Victor, I agree with Mheshimiwa Nabii on a couple of fundamental perspectives that he has prosecuted. One, the issue of yes timelines. How come, and these questions have arisen, that sometimes other critical issues are not fast-tracked as this one has been fast-tracked.
Yeah.
This one has been given the pride of place. However, I ask myself, what do we want as Kenyans? For this reason, when you look at this constitution here that Mheshimiwa works with, even the politics of the day is a pocketbook issue like the constitution. Now, look, the will of the people in this country starts here. When 65% of Kenyans agreed and gave unto themselves the Constitution of Kenya 2010 via referendum, it was the will of the majority. It's here. Secondly, and I just wish that every politician, and I like Mheshimiwa's politics usually, I follow it keenly, would play by the rules laid out in the Constitution. What would be better? Now, Chapter 6, Leadership and Integrity. Yes, some are saying that, for example, the issue of the day, the headline issue of the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua facing the guillotine and his eviction party happening tonight, likely. The issue is, are the offenses leveled and charges leveled against the Deputy President impeachable? If, for instance, of the 11 charges, 2 are substantiated, should he stand impeached?
Against 11?
Yes.
Okay.
And for me, the question is this. What distance are we willing to walk to ensure that leadership and integrity is a critical issue in our governance. And that it should not just start and end with Rigathi Gachagua. That this moment should be a moment of introspection for each of us, citizens and those in office. What kind of leaders do we want? We say that we want leaders with integrity. But when it comes to political nominations, we are going for the Mr. Moneybags. One who is willing to buy us, give us a dime.
Fact.
And that's where it starts. So everything here is cyclical.
Yeah.
We are missing the boat by the river because right from election point, we miss it. Before all this came up, I saw Mheshimiwa asking critical questions when he was in Western. That will the urgency of this impeachment motion bring new roads in his constituency or deal with critical issues to do with infrastructure in his constituency? And of course, the answer is not in the affirmative. But the question is, can we always take every opportunity to say that we want to correct all the wrongs and put right that which has been left behind for far too long? And I don't know how Mheshimiwa voted on these issues of impeachment.
I'll say.
But the question is this. For me, the issue is not even the ultimate vote. The issue is what informed the vote that Mheshimiwa made in the National Assembly when he was having that conversation with himself, observing the happenings in the House. Secondly, for every citizen watching me from every corner of this country, whether in Mandera, Kwale, Busia, or even Kasipul.
Oh, that's my constituency.
When we watch the happenings as presently is on the floor of the Senate, are we watching it because of and taking sides because of political persuasions? Or are we wearing the lenses of leadership and integrity as has been provided for the sieving by the Constitution of Kenya and the laws of the land?
Mheshimiwa, critical questions there. And perhaps the courts will look at the process. Again, what you're talking about, it is politically clean, but there's a way you put it.
Yes, I say it's politically clean, but constitutionally, it is a...
Okay. Now, that gives a clear case for the DP either. If he opts to go to court, then this should be one of the lines that perhaps he'll... Somebody would argue even the process of public participation. Was Wanjiku given enough time to take the papers, the questionnaire, and to interact with the papers and do all the public participation in as far as this is concerned? It was gazetted today, the following morning, all of you are in their respective constituencies across the country. That's another question.
Victor, what is enough time?
That's, I guess, something you said. If it is rushed, then it brings the issue of time. Was Wanjiku given enough time?
I'll place it back on the shoulders of Mheshimiwa here as a member of the National Assembly.
Let me tell you, Victor. This constitution, Kenyans have to make a decision. I'm insisting, and this is my position all along since I came to this parliament, that the Kenyans have to make a decision whether we want to implement this constitution or we have to go and rethink through. I'm saying this because the drafters of the 2010 constitution had two key principles in mind, which are not written anywhere. One, that the implementers of the constitution will have common good. Anytime they're implementing this constitution, it is what applies to common good that should take precedence. That's number one.
That's unwritten law.
The second assumption...
It is written.
Come on. Okay.
No,
yes.
Article 259 provides for the construing of this constitution.
Number two, the other assumption they have about this constitution was that the purveyors of justice, and please, purveyors of justice are not just the courts. The purveyors of justice are leaders in any aspect, so-called state leadership. The purveyors of justice would be willing to implement it wholesome. Unfortunately, from day one of this 2010 constitution, the implementation of the constitution by different stakeholders has been selective. I can tell you, for example, I want to give you a very good example. The equalization fund, which is provided for here.
Yeah.
Can you tell me how it has been implemented in this country? That's number one. Number two, I come back to the public participation issue. The drafters had one thing. They put it here, and they knew very well Parliament was going to enact a law on public participation. Up to today, my brother, we have no law on public participation. What has happened? The courts have been trying to define the parameters. In one court, they will talk about quantity.
Yeah.
Right? In another court, they will be talking about quality. That what is a qualitative public participation? The issues of time, the issues of to the public understand the question, you know, all those. Another court was talking about is it 30% of the people?
Yeah.
You remember in the case of Wambora, in the case of Kibudha Kibwana, is it 30%? Is it 60%? What would constitute a rational public participation? So that is one key issue. Now, having that kind of situation, the courts also have accepted different perspectives. I've seen cases which have gone to court, and all they need to know is, was there engagement with the people? And who are these people? Right? Engagement of the people.
Javan is burning to say something.
No, I just want to finish my argument. So, as far as that is concerned, there is no fast and rules on what constitutes public participation. In fact, you will be shocked how Parliament went around this. They opened up a portal.
Okay.
Yes?
Okay.
And send out a questionnaire. You are allowed to do your public engagement on a portal. As much as people went out. And actually, the majority of those things you are seeing being taken into the Senate in cartons were those that came through the portal.
All right. Does it amount to public participation? Now, Mheshimiwa here commenced his argument by laying the ground about the framers of the Constitution. And now the critical question, Victor, is who are the framers of the Constitution of Kenya 2010? Are they the drafters, or do we go back to the Constituent Assembly that brought in all the stakeholders at Bomas? Is it the drafters whom we can end up concluding as the framers of the Constitution, or is it the Constituent Assembly that sat to deliberate on the critical issues and say that this is the framework of governance that we want? Who are the framers of the Constitution?
The Constituent Assembly.
That is a legal-political question that actually will not take one single show to dissect. It is a legal-political issue that can take actually thesis upon thesis, even of PhD. But let's agree that the framers is the Constituent Assembly, because that is the representation of the real people from every sector, the framers of the Constitution. It was only conveyed to the drafters for purposes of chewing out pulp and spitting it into a document at the referendum. The framers told us what they wanted. Of course, later on we had different versions, the Wako draft, the Naivasha, but in the end we got this, and then we went to a referendum. Now, these are the thoughts of the framers of the Constitution, the Constituent Assembly. We gave unto ourselves, 67% of us as Kenyans, a heritage that we are proud of. And Mheshimiwa says here, and I agree, we have not fully implemented this Constitution. We ought to. But even the National Assembly of Parliament cherry picks what to implement and what to hide. The same way, Chapter 6 says that National Assembly of Parliament, rather, will enact legislation to enable Chapter 6 leadership and integrity. When Parliament enabled, by way of legislation, Leadership and Integrity Act, it was totally watered down. Does not serve the purpose of the framers of the Constitution.
Okay.
But let's come back to the issues at hand. Tying it to what I argued earlier, if Mheshimiwa Rigathi Gachagua is found culpable or one issue is substantiated, is it an issue that Kenyans want to stomach, that we can have a leader who has got this dark cloud hanging upon his head or her head for whatever matter? Or we say we want to be sure that as long as you occupy public office as a state officer, then the expectation of the Constitution, legitimate expectation, is that you must be clean. The other question is this. When a state officer is taking an oath of office, and Mheshimiwa even here took an oath of office,
yes.
Does that oath mean something? Should it mean something? As long as you occupy that office. When you say that I will defend and protect this Constitution, should it mean something? You as a state officer, and owing allegiance to the Constitution itself, and of course, like I've said elsewhere, you end up by even lifting your own eyes to the high heavens and say, so help me God. If it's true, then let us make sure that no leader should occupy office if they've got dark spots.
Now, Victor, I want to just
let's welcome Paul Mugambi.
weigh in something small.
Yes, just welcome Paul Mugambi. He's also joining us on set.
Paul.
Paul Mugambi is an advocate of the High Court. Again, friend of KBC as well. Karibu sana wakili.
Asante sana.
We were just finding us already chewing the bone. There's enough for you to chew with us as well.
Nimebaki ngapi?
We are good to go.
Can see
We are
your
good to go.
friend
All
Java
right.
here.
Yes.
Mheshimiwa, good to see you guys.
Karibu sana. Yes, let's come.
Yes, Victor. I just wanted to assure my brother on one thing. It's already in the standing orders, and is already set a precedent. You are impeachable, even if it's only one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's my whole point.
If we prove even one, you are
Yes,
impeachable.
Yeah. That's my point, is that looking at the circumstances facing Rigathi Gachagua, only an act of God is likely to save him.
Yeah.
Right now, as we are talking, of course, like I said earlier, his eviction party is going to happen tonight. What is surprising me is not that there is Rigathi Gachagua's eviction party tonight. What is surprising me is that Rigathi Gachagua is surprised by the eviction party.
That's the reverse of the events.
Because he saw it coming, he should have seen it coming.
Yeah.
The useful thing about how Rigathi Gachagua is battling this out, the most useful thing, beyond the politics, is that it's going to enrich our jurisprudence and settle some issues of law. The issue, for example, of jurisdiction has now been settled by Justice Mrima. That does High Court have jurisdiction to weigh in and ventilate on issues that are emanating from Parliament regarding the impeachment of a president or deputy president? But as long as it offends the Constitution as a constitutional issue, High Court now has settled that it has got jurisdiction on that matter. The other thing is that post this impeachment, because Rigathi Gachagua knows full well that this impeachment is a concluded issue, he is going to go to the courts, enriching our jurisprudence from that point. The courts, and I appreciate, from BBI decision, from the first 2015 Kiambu Finance Act decision by Justice Odunga, Court of Appeal, the courts have come out clean and clear on issues of the four corners about public participation. Of course, then if it's a question of legislating on public participation, the courts have legislated from the bench, which is of course not their primary mandate. What's now very important is for Parliament to come up and legislate. Having a national statute on public participation would have sealed some of these fundamental questions that have been arising about the worth, extent, and exhaustion of public participation in an exercise such as this.
Well put. Gentlemen, I want us to take a break. And when we come back, we're still going to circle that, because since we started this conversation, one thing is constant: Constitution. That's what I've been hearing all through. Constitution. That is our guiding Bible.
As lawyers, of course, we we cannot argue outside the Constitution.
All right, let's take a break. I need to continue with this discussion. Stay with us. More coming after this. also an interested party in this case. Let's go to Mombasa.
Kwa majina naitwa Samuel Obatine kutoka bunge la Mombasa. Wakati tulipiga kura ya 2022 tulipigia watu wawili. Tulipigia Gachagua na tukapigia Ruto akiwa president na mwingine akiwa mdogo wake. Ya kwamba saa hii vita imeanza wao wenyewe. Ikiwa vice president amefanya makosa yote imewekwa, tunataka iwe pale amefika kwa Senate waangalie makosa yote ile amefanya. Ikiwa amefanya makosa atuondokee, mwingine awekwe. Ikiwa haja afanye makosa yote aweze. Ikiwa itarudi kwa koti na koti msamee, tukubaliane. Kile tunataka Kenya ni umoja wa Kenya na kuwa hakuna ukabila. Asanteni.
Thank you. Kwa majina anaitwa Raymond. Swala la Rigathi Gachagua kuondolewa, mimi na support kwa sababu hii nchi imekuwa ikipigana na ukabila kwa miaka mingi. Nafikiri tumefikia mahali ambapo at least tulikuwa tunaanza kujivunia kwamba tumetoka katika hiyo hali. Lakini saa hii kama tutakuwa na kiongozi kama huyu ambaye ako na haiba ya kama deputy president na bado anataka kuturegesha nyuma kudrive hali ya ukabila, it's so unfortunate kwa sababu yeye kila wakati mimi nilipokuwa nikimsikiza kama deputy wangu aliniambia kwamba watu wa mlima, watu wa mlima, watu wa mlima, na tulimchagua kama deputy ambaye ni wa nchi nzima. Sasa nashangaa hii nchi hii ya Kenya iko na mlima peke yake ama iko na mahali nyingine ambayo si mlimani? Because hata yeye akisimama mahali kama Lamu County, Kwale County, unamsikia amesimama Kwale County lakini ana drive agendas za mlimani. So mimi nataka chenye nilikuwa nashindwa na kuelewa ni kwamba huyu rais alichaguliwa na wale wa Mount Kenya ama alichaguliwa na wananchi wote. Sasa saa hii mambo yamefika ngumu, anakuja kutuambia kwamba Wakenya waulizwe kwa sababu hao ndio walimpigia kura. Badala ya kusema watu wa Mount Kenya waulizwe kwa sababu hao ndio wamekuwa kidrive agendas zao, anasema anatujumuisha kama Wakenya wote. Hapo ndio ananikoroga. So mimi yale makosa ambayo yamewekewa, mimi naona yako very very right. Mimi kama ataenda, mimi sina shida nalo kwa sababu kama kutakuja mwingine pia atajua kwamba hii nchi ni ya Wakenya wote na sio ya kabila hii wala Wakenya hii wengine. Thank you so much.
Asanteni sana. My names are Benjamin Wafula, bunge la wananchi Mombasa. I'm very happy to be here today. What I'm saying is that mimi siwezi sulubisha Gachagua. Siwezi msulubisha because sijaona makosa yake mimi kama Mkenya. And we said that the Kenya government nominated Rigathi Gachagua, Ruto to cater in one ticket and we voted for them. Asanteni sana.
Kwa majina naitwa Ali Rujo. Kwanza naambia wa Kenya kwamba hili jambo la Rigathi Gachagua, kwanza naambia particular watu wa Central, hili jambo wasilichukulie kiukabila. Hili jambo ni makosa ya Gachagua. Tusilete makosa ya kiongozi fulani tusileke katika ukabila. Manake watu wa Central pia sisi tumeoana nao, tumezaa nao, tumekuwa kitu kimoja. Naona. Kwa hivyo makosa ya Gachagua iwe ni ya Gachagua peke yake, isiingilie kikabila. Sababu mimi nimefurahia sana huyu Gachagua kuondoka kwa sababu sisi 2007 tumetoka katika fujo la mambo ya kiukabila. Naona Gachagua ile kauli yake, tuseme ile statement yake anatoa ni kwamba anataka kurejesha watu kule kule tulikotoka. Maana ukisema kwamba wewe unatetea watu wako na sisi ambao tuna watu tutatetewa na nani? Masisi hatuna viongozi huko mbele tutatetewa na nani? Sasa ndio mimi sasa unanitia mimi chuki nikiona mtu wa Central na mgonga nyundo na mwingine itakuwa ni fujo. Na hiyo hatutaki katika hii Kenya. Kenya ni moja, sote ni kitu kimoja, na kama ni makosa Gachagua abebe msalaba yake. Asalamu alaykum.
Kwa majina ni Cornelius Nkoba, bunge la mwananchi Mombasa. Kwanza mimi sichaona makosa ya Gachagua kulingana mimi, kwa sababu niliona bungeni kulikuwa na sarakasi. Hata vile walipiga zile kura, hawakupiga ile kwanza one by one up to 11. Waliweka pamoja. Weta na kukatia speech yako. Naona hii ni siasa tu. Hii ni sarakasi tu ya serikali. Kama mmeshindwa, Gachagua tu mna tu bure. Bure tu. Sasa tunaangalia koti. Because we have 3 arms of the government. Tunaongojea nyinyi. Na nyinyi mkifanya hivyo, basi Kenya haina mtu wa kumtetea. Asanteni.
Yes, kwa majina naitwa Joshua. Mimi upande wangu na support kutolewa kwa Gachagua kwa sababu ya maneno yake amekuwa kwa public kuongea na jinsi pia amekuwa conduct mambo yake na jinsi alitoa speech nyuma ya rais akiwa hapa Mombasa. Tunaomba kama Gachagua, mimi ningemwomba hata ingewezekana afuate process zote, angekuwa mzalendo wa Kenya angeresign mwanzo mapema atoke sana. Asanteni.
Kwa majina naitwa Morris, mimi ni mkazi na ni mbunge wa hapa Mwembe hapa Splendid. Kulingana na impeachment ya Gachagua, mimi naona kama hii kitu ilikuwa ingefanyika kitambo, hata kama last year kule haingefika hapa. Na kitu kwanza muhimu sana, nataka kutoa shukrani kwa ule mbunge ambaye ametable hii kitu kwa parliament na akatoa ushahidi. Tunaomba tukue na viongozi wengine kama hao, wabunge kama 100, nafikiri Kenya tutanyoroka. Naona katiba yetu sasa ndio imeanza kufanya kazi, na tunaomba wengine kama hao wasiogope. Kama umeona mtu ameiba mali ya serikali, atafute ushahidi, atable, tuhakikishe tutadili nao vipi kama wananchi wa Kenya. Asante sana.
Mheshimiwa Nabii, let me start with you. What's your reaction? That's from Mombasa, and Wanjiku is speaking his mind.
Yeah, just the way it's coming out, you know, that way. It's the same way it came out in my constituency. But you know, Victor, many of these people have not read the charges. I can tell you, even many commentators have not had time to look at what are the charges and what evidence is available. And I want to thank Javan to have brought out this issue so that the public know that we only need one impeachable offense. Okay? You are concerned how I voted. I voted yes to impeach Gachagua, for God's sake. And that is after a lot of soul searching. I had asked a lot of issues. By the way, the time I started asking those questions you saw when I was addressing my constituency, this thing had been in the air for 3 months. You may not know. This thing of impeaching Gachagua has not started today. It has been in the air. Now, at that time, it was becoming an issue. Even people, you have problems of committee meetings, people have gone to caucus. So I said, look, this thing is becoming unnecessary.
So there was some behind the scenes happening in
of course, when something is
for
of
over
this
6
nature.
months, actually.
Yes.
Okay.
It had even started going into rallies.
Actually, the primaries, the commencement of the debate started around July last year.
Exactly, by Ichungwa. And it was affecting many issues. So, for me, I said, guys, can we be able to prioritize? As I said that, when I came back to Parliament the following week, the motion was hit. So I said, okay, this thing has come, let me look at it. And let me tell you, for me, what broke the camel is when the Deputy President addressed a meeting, a press conference in Embu and at his residence. At that time, it was on a Sunday. And he brought it out in such a way that to me, it was irredeemable for him to work with the president. Because he was saying he doesn't even know. He doesn't even get the itinerary. That is a person who has lost trust of his boss. Even whichever way this thing go, I don't want to preempt how it will go.
Okay.
Assuming Gachagua is not impeached, for example.
How does he work?
How does he work with William? How? With the president. The president who nominated him to be his running mate has lost trust. And if you want to prove that the president has lost trust, has he ever commended saying this thing came up? Never. Anyone else would have come to say, look, guys, I'm enjoying my working. All matter of claims have come up. So the relationship is irredeemable. It is like a marriage. The only problem with this one is that the people who are not there when they were consummating are now being asked to help in the separation. Because that's what the Constitution envisages.
That's how the Senate and the National Assembly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For God's sake, even if he survives, the most reasonable thing the Deputy President can do for this country is then after that to resign. Because they will not be working for Kenya, he will be actually a ghost worker. Why? He's supposed to be assigned duties by the president. The president has already allocated duties to Kindiki, to Mudavadi, to all those people, meaning he has lost trust. He himself has admitted that he has not attended, through his lawyers, he has not attended the National Security Council meeting, which is a most important organ. And that's why he went to address the issues of National Security Council in public. For me, from my background, that is a marriage that cannot work. Now, if a marriage cannot work, even if you went to a pastor, a practicing Protestant, specifically of PAG Church, if your wife went to the pastor and told the pastor that this man comes to bed dressed in his suit, the pastor will just tell him this one is not well. Please just park.
How should he dress?
Yes.
How should he dress while going to bed?
In sleeping gowns.
Wakili, let me bring in Wakili Mugambi. Wakili, good morning.
Good morning.
You've had that sleeping gown. Okay, so let's come back here. He's talked about something quite fundamental, that the issue of impeachment did not start last week, last month, or even 2 months ago. Perhaps there is so much that Wanjiku doesn't know. Based on what he's also saying, that there is a lot happening behind the scenes that Wanjiku is not aware of.
Exactly.
Which is okay, because government has to work in a certain way. You can imagine if all the secrets and confidential matters are put in the public, we will not have a nation. But how fast did that relationship deteriorate? Because it started all well. Let me give an example of a marriage, you know, the honeymoon stage, and all that. Before you know it, we are here dissolving the marriage and divorce papers are flying across. This is akin to that. How fast?
Using legal jargons.
Yeah.
Under the Marriage Act, there are reasons for divorce. And one of them is if the marriage is irretrievably broken. You cannot mend the relationship. But also an important one, if the marriage is not consummated. And in this case, I think I would go with the consummation part from where the honorable member left it. I think this marriage was not consummated. The body language, the conversations in corridors of power, and all manner of indications show that that marriage was not consummated. And I don't think the two were happy together. Maybe it was not meant to be. And you can see in barely 1 year in office, there were conversations about removal. Removal from office. First of all, it began from the opposition quarters. I remember Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna saying that he doesn't fit, the deputy president doesn't fit to hold a public office. ODM leader and former premier Raila Odinga also mentioned that. I mean, in an interview he gave, he was very, very, very emphatic about the deputy president being unfit to hold public office, being because of his utterances. And I think as soon as the deputy president, all this is speculative, so I'm just trying to deduce from what I've picked from different quarters. So it's, as soon as he realized that, he retreated to his backyard and saying, you know, the mountain this, mountain that, mountain this, mountain that, and trying for over a year to galvanize that base. And this is what now he's been unable to do. In my view, I don't think it has worked for him. In the end, now he's been consumed by what he started, and I think he found himself in a situation where he was in a situation where he was in a hole, and then he continued digging and digging, and got deeper and
come
deeper.
out of it.
Yeah.
But again, gentlemen, red flags. So by the time the president was picking him as his running mate, nobody saw the red flags
Just a minute.
that came out,
Victor.
as soon as it all started.
Victor, I want to use his analogy.
Go ahead.
If I went and borrowed his Mercedes to go and court a girl, I went and showed the girl his house. And then when the D-Day comes, we walk into a grass-thatched house. Do you know what that girl continues asking?
You'll take him coffee on a motorbike?
Yes. And she will keep on saying, if I have an opportunity, I'll get out of this. One of the things that is coming out clearly from where I sit, the two came up together in deceit.
Okay.
Because there was a common enemy, Raila Amolo Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta. That's point number one. Point number two, which is important for me here, and which is critical, is it appears to me from day one, this was designed to fail.
Okay.
In the sense that there were always checkmates to Gachagua. And I agree with him. One thing that Gachagua did not do is he did not read the signs of the day properly. Remember, there was an attempted vote to get a running mate. He was not the preferred by the most of the MPs. Now, at the time, once he became the deputy, he did the opposite. He should have gone to impress these people who had voted against him in the boardroom, the MPs. They eventually won seats as MPs. Instead, he went to fight them. Okay?
Okay.
Going against the grain of political strategy. Usually, when you have you have lost a part, you go for approval. And how do you go for approval? You impress. Of course, one thing I want to disagree with the Mugambi is that the political elite, Gachagua lost them. The ordinary person in the mountain, Gachagua got them.
Okay. I had not taken a look at what we have on the two papers. The discussion went straight into it, which is very important. Regard this bruising battle. That's on the front page of the Standard. Okay. Regard this bruising battle. In fact, the entire sitting yesterday, the only time that he uttered a word was when he was answering to the charges. Not guilty. After that, he didn't say a word, and he sat pensively. So when DP Rigathi Gachagua appeared before the Senate, he was reeling from a stirring of losses in the National Assembly and the courts. And his early prayers to Speaker King yesterday suffered the same fate, leaving him to face his accusers in a bare-knuckled war that saw his lawyers rip through Kibwezi MP Mwengi Mutuse's evidence in a surgical cross-examination where the motion mover admitted to several inadequacies. Javas, several inadequacies.
It's true.
From the motion mover.
That does not discount the fact that Rigathi Gachagua has engaged in suicidal politics. You cannot put on your father's trouser and think that you can invite and in fact engage your father's in-laws in the name of your father. What Rigathi Gachagua has done is a sin that in politics cannot be forgiven. And that's why we are seeing the devil on the cross. Regarding the charges that have been leveled against him and the evidence, we saw yesterday, witnessed before our own eyes, how Honorable Mutuse was, in some cases, struggling to defend the charges that he himself brought to the floor of the House. It is because, for a number of reasons, Honorable Mutuse, and of course we know as lawyers, that when it comes to the craft of cross-examination, it limits Mutuse and how he can explain some things.
Yeah.
And that's a tactic in cross-examination. And that's why even counsel for Rigathi Gachagua, my good friend Elisha Ngoya, came out all guns blazing.
To capitalize on that.
But of course, the other side is also going to play its tricks.
Yeah.
And with that,
they put him on his defense.
you will see even how Rigathi Gachagua will be desirous to swallow his own tongue because of the same tactics and approach in cross-examination. But let's face it, I can nearly bet my grandfather's jacket, seated here in this chair, that about 6 or 7 charges are likely to be flawed or shredded. Tonight, Senate is likely to find that about 3 or 4 of the charges can be substantiated. And that is what will send Rigathi Gachagua home. The 8 charges or the 7 charges that are going to be shredded will not be sufficient to save his skin, which is already very thin and pale. The other thing is that in the issues to do with the economic crimes, as charge number 7 reads, and the issue of the utility of his office to try and tilt an award of a contractor, if possible in his favor, or a favor to a company associated with his children by proxy. For me, the issue is not that the contract was not awarded.
Yes.
The issue is when a deputy president picks his phone to make a call, how should we look at it in terms of using public office to influence?
Chapter 6.
What should it amount to? The issue is, because in other cases, suppose the contract had been awarded, would he have benefited?
Hold on to that question. Can we answer this? Go to Kisumu.
Well, of course, please, let us fly there by way of Concord.
All right. Let's cross over to Kisumu and listen to...
Not to Kasipul.
My people in Kasipul are still waiting to hear what's going to happen tonight. Wycliffe, okay, joining us from the lakeside city of Kisumu. Wycliffe, it's an interesting time to live in the country right now. I have got brilliant brains in studio. Kisumu city is relatively calm from what I can see. What else can you tell us? Good morning, Wycliffe.
Morning to you, Victor Olo from Nairobi. I equally have brilliant minds from this side of the country. Like you said, Kisumu is cool and calm. Like you say, people going about their businesses just usually. But then again, at the end of the day, we know the big event going on at the Senate from actually from 9, that is 25 minutes from now. The Senate will be resuming its sittings to proceed with the scrutiny, or rather the impeachment proceeding, or rather motion that is before them regarding the special motion regarding the impeachment of the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. The proceedings, we know, have been underway at the Senate since yesterday. We've had legal arguments, we've had evidential submissions from both from the National Assembly and also the other side of the Deputy President. But again, we know Kenyans have a lot to say about this entire process. And joining me live, from the lakeside now, I have 2 gentlemen. One, Isaac Oburu, from the civil society, a local civil society organization, and of course an advocate of the High Court, that is Clifford Obiero. Starting with you, Bwana Oburu, look into the camera and share with Kenyans this morning. I'm quite sure you've been following the proceedings at the Senate since yesterday, and this being the final day when the senators will be taking the vote. Do you believe that the evidential presentations or the submissions at the Senate and also the argument from both sides subject the Deputy President to a fair trial? Look into the camera.
Yes, I want to say that we have actually been treated to a different picture from what we saw during the parliamentary proceedings on the same matter. And watching through the proceedings yesterday, I want to say that a lot of new content, a lot of new information has been put on table, and at least that even puts the common mwananchi to be able to be a judge of the process. Unlike the parliamentary proceeding, even the processes were fast-tracked and did not give mwananchi a lot of the civic education that is now being employed, especially in order to be able to understand what are the violations that the Deputy President did really make, and leaving alone the politics, because we know he's a politician. We also know some of the utterances, even me personally, I was against. And at times I used to ask myself, are we really in Kenya, or this is a fairly regional imbalance being created by the office of the presidency, because the deputy president sits in the same position as the president of the Republic of Kenya. So mine is to watch and see what will be transpiring again today, because I understand he will be he is a key witness today, moving in to defend himself. And I'll be interested in the cross-examination now for him to now either be able to disown his own words, be able to interpret them in a manner for me to also make a new opinion about him, considering his political utterance that has led to this process. Yes.
This process started in the National Assembly. We had public participation at the constituency level, and now it is at the Senate. At the end of the day, the senators will take vote. From where you sit as a resident of the Lakeside, do you believe the senators will be guided by the submissions they have been treated to at the Senate, or political affiliations will take center stage here?
Yeah, one truth in Kenya that we are politically inclined. We are also politically diffused, because now we know we are talking about a broad-based government, and that brings in a bit of some political inclination. And looking at how Parliament even voted, I may fail to understand that again Senate might vote the same way. But looking at the entire process, how it has been carried, there's a lot of value in the process. There's a lot of fairness in the process. Even if all the 11 counts might not hold, and just one count found to actually hold weight in the current proceeding, but we shall be able to appreciate that the Deputy President was given a fair process. It is indeed also political, because we also want to get some political medicine, political solution to what is affecting the country. Because even moving forward, if he survives, then my question will be, then what will be his role compared to now we are being taken through the understanding of the roles of the Deputy President, and also as the unity of purpose in the government. So I'm failing to actually be able to project what will be the working relationship moving forward. Yes.
Actually, you've just touched on the question I wanted to ask you next. You've touched on fairness, and based on fairness, there are only two outcomes. The DP will survive, or he will be ousted through impeachment, yes. But then we've had public participation, Kenyans have spoken, but from where you sit, or from your position, what characteristics of a leader do you expect from the hold of that particular office? And still on the same breath, would you say that the DP is guilty of the charges that are being leveled against him?
From my public or my personal opinion, one, looking at how they came into government and what proceeded thereon, you'll be able to see the Deputy President kept on reaffirming to us, as especially people who come from this region, we easily felt we are not in the government. Just because he kept on reaffirming that this is a shareholding government. It depends on what contribution you brought on board. But again, he was missing the understanding that if the President Ruto was not there, maybe based on other natural factors, then he will actually become the president. Then my question will be, will the country still feel unified under his presidency, based on what the president had already said, proclaiming his position publicly, that if you are not, if you did not bring in value to the process or to this current system in terms of voting, then you are not counted in. So I would also want to get what is his presentation on that line before Senate. And I want to believe that he has also learned a lesson. He has also learned a lesson that once you're given a public position, a public leadership opportunity like what he had, he is no longer representing any region going by the tenets of the Constitution. Therefore, even people from this region, when I tell you don't touch the lake, we will actually mean that you not like a fisherman, or like when you tell me don't touch the mountain, I'm not going to do mountain climbing, and tell me don't touch the mountain. But realistically, when you look at that, it's able to ground a very clear division in the country now that we are ethnically polarized as a country, and even looking at the experiences we had in 2007. And being as a person, a member of the civil society, we actually played a key role in being able to bring peace across among the various ethnic groups of young people all over the Kenya. And we want an institution that is also going to provide that cohesion as a country, as a key value of what makes us feel free, feel proud to be Kenyans.
And lastly for you, given the submissions you've been following the Senate since yesterday, at the end of the day, would you say what will be so fair for the DP? Will the senator, if the senators vote in his favor or against him, what will be so fair for him?
What will be fair for the deputy is that he should be able to accept the process and its outcome, looking at the relevant counts that he is actually facing, and whichever count will carry the day. He must be able to say that actually he has now found a fair process in Senate compared to the National Assembly. And I think even Kenyans who might have thought this process was a diversion will also appreciate the level of civic engagement that we have been taken through. And whichever the outcome, we will be able to say, yes, there was value in reasoning. Yes, there was value in according the Deputy President fair hearing. And also there is value that Kenya is one, and the institutions need to be fair to every Kenyan.
Thank you so much, Isaac Obiero. Clifford, I would now like to engage you here. Very briefly, look into the camera. You are a legal practitioner. If you just look into the camera and talk to Kenyans, you've been following this, I'm quite sure. And will you say that this entire process, right from the National Assembly and now at the Senate, and this process is supposed to end today when the Senate does actually take the vote, has it been fair enough?
Okay, we cannot say that it's fair at the Senate if it was not fair in Parliament, in the National Assembly. We saw what happened in the National Assembly, and actually what's going on in the Senate is just trying to sanitize that went wrong in the National Assembly. Because if you ask me, there were everything wrong with everything that took place in the National Assembly, the issues that they were bringing around, the questions they were asking, that, and even the manner they were asking them will demonstrate that they were judges who had already been compromised. You can ask questions whereby even the person who is being tried already know the outcome, and you will see the member of National Assembly actually trying to joke around with the process. Look at even the public participation. That was a vote of no confidence to members of Parliament, because it's not provided for in the law, but the judge sitting somewhere said that it's important that public participation takes place, because one, at that particular stage there is no role of the public. The members of Parliament are supposed to be representing the public because they were elected to do so. That is some of the delegated roles that they were supposed to do. When they were now doing public participation, then it would mean that their capacity to engage the people on the ground was already defiled and questioned. But now that when they passed it with that majority, then it showed you that the rumors that were going by could be true, because that majority was also not, when you are in a meeting where everyone leaves and say everything is right without somebody questioning or trying to panel beat something, then either it is a predetermined meeting or everybody sitting there is a fool. I'm sorry to use that. But not in the context of Parliament, in the context of the society. But now we are in the Senate, and we were able to follow what was taking place there, and I can tell you that is why they deserve to be called the upper house. Seated from where I was, trying to eliminate myself from the Gachagua in the field, trying to give Gachagua a fair hearing as I would give to my two children who disagreed, then I was seeing questions that again we need to ask and ought to have even been asked in the National Assembly. You could see people who actually brought some evidence here, stammer, with some things that are not even making sense. My expectation is that by the time they are going to vote, then they are supposed to do what it ought to be. not what it is, as we know as Kenyans. What is it that it ought to be? What it ought to be is that they were sitting there in the capacity of judges as a tribunal, quasi-tribunal, so to speak. And we are expecting the submissions that were being made yesterday to be persuasive to how they are going to vote today. We expect people who could have been having an idea will have changed because of probably how tough questions were not answered and how people stammered and kind of whatever. I'm not saying so because I am probably pro Gachagua politics. I'm one of the people who did not agree with the manner in which he carelessly spewed comments and handled things administratively around. But you know, when it comes to the court of law, we expect to the court of law or tribunal, you expect to subject someone to something that you would have been happy if you are subjected to. We remove the Gachagua out of him. Let us look at him as a Kenyan citizen who has laws that are supposed to regulate his sittings. And then we give him a fair hearing, regardless of the disagreements that we may have and the perception that we may hold.
And again, at the end of the day, the senators will take the vote later in the evening today. And 45 senators at least 45 are required to vote to determine the fate of the deputy president. In your opinion, where does this place the country? Should the DP get impeached or not?
You know, the reality of the matter is that the impeachment of the president, similar to the impeachment of the deputy president, is determined in finality in the Senate. And trust me, the decision that is made there cannot even be reviewed in the court of law. You know that. And in such a circumstance, the decision is going to be made by the senators that we have there, and they must meet the fraction that is required by the statute. So what we expect them to do today, even as we will be watching, we expect them to set a precedent, knowing very well that Gachagua is on it today, but this is not the last time we are having a deputy president. Another deputy president could be voting against Gachagua today. And you set a threshold that you will be happy if one day the same is subjected to you. So let us not do it because it is Gachagua. Let us do it knowing very well that this thing will be cited and people will be using it as president going forward. So that in subsequent sitting, if Orengo becomes the deputy president, he has said something that he will be happy if he is subjected to the same scale. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Victor, that is Wakili talking to us about the entire process of the special motion regarding the impeachment of the deputy president. Earlier on, you heard from another gentleman from the Lakeside City, that is Isaac Oburu, also giving his opinion. All they are pointing to to one direction by the fact that they need, in their opinion, the entire process has been fair. The Senate, yes, and on the separate, they are expecting a sober judgment at the end of the day. You know, the senators will be taking the vote later in the evening after the cross-examination, the submissions, the legal arguments from both sides. Now the senators will be taking their vote on this particular special impeachment, and they here speaking about saying that they expect sobriety to take precedence even as the senators will be taking the vote later in the evening. But something they've been quick to notice is the fairness and sobriety that has manifested at the Senate in comparison with the National Assembly. And on that bit, they are confident and adamant that the same fairness that has been exhibited there will again be exhibited when the senators will be taking the vote regarding the special impeachment of the deputy president. Well, this is a continuous process. We are not leaving it here. We'll continue to engage more of the residents of Kisumu to understand what they have to say about this entire process. But for now, Victor, I know you said you have brilliant minds in the studio, and now I'm handing it back to you to continue the live discussion right in studio. Back to you, Victor.
All right. Okay, that is Weekly for Catch coming to us all the way from Kisumu County. And of course, that is those are some of the sentiments from the voters, residents of Kisumu, giving their opinion in as far as this case is concerned. All right, so let's take a break. When we come back, I'll circle back and come to the tail end. Remember, at 9 a.m., we'll cross over to the Senate for the final day of this hearing. Stay with us. Very good. Welcome back. So now, we've heard from Kisumu, we've heard from Mombasa, and now let's come back and just make sense of now what's happening today. We have a fully packed day today, and of course we expect the Deputy President to take the stand. I'm so sure it's going to be one of those days that if it goes either way, then he shall have expressed himself to members of the Senate and of course the Kenya in general. So let me come back to you, Javas, because before we took a break, it was on you. What do you have to make on, again, let's come back to yesterday, what happened in the Senate. Give us a rundown on your account, what you saw, the demeanor in the House, the way the Senate carried itself from the beginning until the House was adjourned until now.
The demeanor will not be useful in terms of the outcome of this process, because we know that the process currently being undertaken by the Senate is quasi-judicial. And the evidence being adduced and corroborated, because, of course, as a matter of fact, we know that it's a postulate, critical postulate of evidence law, that evidence must be corroborated. Now, the issue here is that the threshold of the evidentiary value of all that will be adduced in the Senate today does not have to be beyond reasonable doubt. We know that for a fact. What is essential is that can any reasonable person believe that the allegations of the charges facing Rigathi Gachagua, one, can be substantiated, and any reasonable person, and here reasonable persons are the senators, because they're the ones who are going to vote. Do they believe that it makes sense and that the charges or certain charges have been substantiated on a balance of probability that actually he is culpable? Because these are not criminal proceedings. So have they been substantiated, any of them? Some people have been moved tremendously, thinking that, and some have been even oscillating between positions of support, members of the public for that matter, because of the characterization and how dramatized the cross-examination was taking place yesterday. Let us go back down memory lane when President Uhuru Kenyatta, former president, and now President William Ruto, former civil servant extraordinaire Francis Mudhaura and others were facing charges at the ICC. And on the first day of evidence being presented and the cross-examination, everybody was saying that the case has collapsed. But you see, that is the folly of layman lenses. But if you look at it from the legal perspective and the political consequence of this process as it's going on, remember that it is the primary role of parliamentarians, now that National Assembly is functioning as official, Senate, to weigh in on the evidence, the charges, and take a vote on each of the charges. It will not be omnibus the way it was in the National Assembly. And so, a number of factors are going to be critical. One, common sense approach. Second, the very heavy heart of politics that is going to be won, or that's being won by the politicians in that house. Third, the imperative of the political matrimony between Kenya Kwanza and ODM. It is critical, and it will inform part of the outcome as a mechanism of voting. You saw how some of the senators from allied to Kalonzo Musyoka were asking interesting questions. It is because evidently Kalonzo Musyoka has voiced that he is diametrically opposed to the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua for political reasons. Kalonzo Musyoka himself, he is always like that guest who is always very late for every party. Because even as all this is happening, he imagines that if Rigathi Gachagua falls, the mountain is going to fall over backwards in support of himself. And yet, he seems even oblivious of the strategic issues and approaches and how even to station himself in the circumstances.
Yeah.
And even as this thing is happening, I can assure you, and I have nothing against Kalonzo Musyoka, he is going to be one of the greatest losers in recorded history from these things that are happening. The new DP, and I can assure you, Victor, in the next 6 or 7 months, Rigathi Gachagua is going to be a forgotten person in the political currency of this country, at least from the forefront. And of course, we know that the DCI and EACC are going to swing into action. If at all, they have got reason to believe that some of the charges need to be actually be investigated and charges pressed. So if at all there is anything that I have for Rigathi Gachagua, it is a truckload of mercy, because difficult days are ahead of him in the courts, politically, and this also depends on the character and the manner of the person that is going to be picked as deputy president. How acceptable nationally this person is, how acceptable this person is going to be in the eyes of Central Kenya. The upshot is that Rigathi Gachagua is going to be impeached tonight because of the weighty issues of part of the charges and because of the nature of the politics at play today.
Let me ask you, Wakili, I'll come back to Mheshimiwa. What would change the political landscape? Or would it change the happenings that we are seeing right now if he resigned after taking the stand? Perhaps he'll be given an hour or two to explain himself, and then later on in the afternoon, before they take a vote, he resigns.
Doesn't
How
matter
would that
right now.
make any difference?
The Senate of the Republic of Kenya, and exercising its roles under Article 96 of the Constitution, is already seized of the matter, and that cannot be undone. So that has to go to the logical conclusion. And as at now, the Deputy President, in an opportunity yesterday, earlier, before the Senate started debating the impeachment charges, and that's about it. Right now, the die is cast. That process has to go to the logical conclusion.
Even if he resigns?
Even if he resigns. The impeachment has to either be upheld or, they can drop the impeachment. They can vote against the impeachment, the Senate. But you cannot withdraw the matter from the Senate as at now. What criteria will you use? What part of standing orders are you going to apply? It's not possible. So whether he resigns or not right now, my humble submission is that his goose is cooked. This process has got the logical conclusion. His advisors maybe might have misled him, or he might have misled himself, because the biggest part of his undoing is himself. When you're in a hole, you don't continue digging. And I think the Deputy President knew from the onset the implications, because I had him mentioning in the National Assembly the implications of his ouster through impeachment towards the tail end, when he was trying to beseech the National Assembly not to vote against him, and the member is here, he was present in the House, he told us he voted yes for the impeachment. So I think for now, he doesn't have too many options. Whether it's doomed ab initio, like from the word go, with the matter being considered by the Senate is out of his hands. And I can say this, the next conversation is about replacement. The next conversation is not about whether it will be impeached or not. The next conversation, the next national discourse in the ensuing hours, not even days, in the ensuing hours, will be about who's the next Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. And I posit that in this show that we could have a new Deputy President by Mashujade.
By?
Mashujade.
By Mashujade?
Yes.
Okay, that will be on Sunday.
Yes.
That explains how fast what's on the front page of the Star newspaper actually put it here. Inside plan to swiftly replace Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. That is on the front page. Of course, that will also have to wait and see how it's going to happen. But then now, how is it going to change the political landscape, Mheshimiwa? Even how parliamentarians should be transacting the House and the business in the House there. You've done your part. So moving forward.
Victor, I'm going to have a very, very different opinion from my two colleagues here. I've been in this country for quite long, and I started participating in politics when I was a student. I've grown in ODM as a youth wing before I went to the corporate world. Last week, I spent a lot of time in my constituency. It's in Western Kenya. But what I got from the public, and which I continue getting even in Nairobi here, is very strange. And that is the mind of the voter. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. And you may be shocked. We may face another Sierra Leone in this country. They barred a person to run for presidency. He installed a prime minister, a young boy. The prime minister has brought him back as, the president has brought him back as the prime minister running the government. I've had this view, and I told my colleagues, we have had debate even at our own caucus level, that if we are not careful, we could create a monster in one Gachagua. Today, you have listened to people here, and I could pick where they're coming from, even those from Mombasa. From the accent, I could pick where they're coming from. If it is not well managed, with the rebellion, the public rebellion against government functioning, two things will happen. And these things, if the government continues to underperform the way it is underperforming, don't wish away Gachagua. Right. Whichever way, whether he will just be a citizen, don't wish him away.
Gentlemen, the time is here, and I'm told that Senate is ready. What should I expect, Javas? But we are not yet out. What should I expect?
I do anticipate a very harrowing ordeal on the floor of the Senate today, being the D-Day. I do expect that he will be pushed to the corner by way of interesting questions, re-examination that is going to take place on the floor of the Senate today. I also do expect very riveting responses from Rigathi Gachagua's counsel, trying to protect him, just the way Mother Chicken does to the
we are told that the subject, the candidate, the deputy president is already in the Senate. Gentlemen, I have just to cut it short, but stay with me. And then we'll cross over there and see what's happening, because already it's going to be a very busy day, and by close of business, we'll see what's going to happen in this country. Can we just cross over to the Senate and take a look?